Okay, so I want to see how easy this is going to be. One of the things that I've been doing is when I'm uploading new content to Facebook or Instagram, I've been using quotes. I've noticed that quotes generate quite a lot more interaction. That's it. I don't think it's just the quotes. I think I've been extending the places I've been posting to. So from Facebook, I'm actually sharing from my Facebook page. I'm actually sharing to a number of different groups that are relevant, where I've kind of already got a little bit of a profile. So yeah, I've been using quotes, but I've also encountered some graphics where I've come up with a title, or some images where I've come up with a title. Haven't really been able to find a quote that's relevant. There was possibly the most notable one, and maybe I'll show you later, was about cellular mitosis. So cellular mitosis is the process of splitting out cells when they kind of split. Couldn't find a quote about that, but I started making one up in ChatGPT. So this particular image, I should have brought it up really. Let's find it on the desktop. It's actually two images. This one and this one. And I'm going to call it Dreaming Trees. I don't know why, because I like the tree sort of a shape, and I like these kind of little things which are like speech bubbles almost, or something. There's something interesting going on with them anyway. So Dreaming Trees. So I'm going to use ChatGPT, and what I found is in the past is that if I just straight up ask it for a quote, it's not going to come up with anything decent. But let's try it. Write a short quote, keep it simple, about dreaming trees. Looks like I need to log in. I'm using ChatGPT 3. I have two accounts, one here and one on my mobile actually. I seem to be having a bit of a problem here. Oh, it's because I changed my password, I think. Okay. Let's try that. Huh. It's annoying. It's bad timing, isn't it? See, the thing about this series of YouTube videos is it's not going to work if I have to keep editing. So I need this, I don't really want to retake things. I don't want to do more than one take, and I don't want to end up with loads of editing. So you might have to put up with me occasionally if something like that happens. But okay, let's try again. I want a quote about dreaming trees. Okay, so it's brought up a quote that's real. And it's a nice quote, isn't it? In fact, it might be the quote I need. Well, that's interesting that it can come up with quotes, isn't it? I wonder what other quotes it might have. So I'm going to say, give me 5 more quotes about trees. I'm going to be a bit more specific. I'm going to say, give me my 5 more philosophical quotes about trees. Wow, so I really like that. Now I'm assuming that those quotes are real. I think when you're using ChatGPT, you have to be a little bit careful. I would, if I'm going to choose any of these, I'm going to check them first. I wouldn't mind about it coming up with some random quote that's not real. That's what do they call it? It's kind of AI hallucinating. But I would rather check them. I'd rather know myself whether they're real or not. But I'm going to guess that they are real. But let's see if we can get it to write a fictional quote. And so let's try write a fictional quote about trees that connects the idea of life branching out in different directions, and let's say trees that connects the idea of life branching out in different directions, and the possibilities it presents us with in different directions, with the possibilities it presents us with. I'm going to say and fractals, because let's see what that says. See, this is what quite typically happens. It'll come back to you with a quote that is uses the language that you've used, and B, it's quite often very dry. It's almost like quite a literal interpretation. I can give it more details. I think that's the way to do that in this case. Trees remind us that life is a branching journey, with each path leading to new opportunities and possibilities. Just as the fractal patterns in their leaves and branches, anyway, and so on and so on. It's not really catchy, is it? It's not really, it's interesting. It does exactly what I asked it to do. But I think I need to give it more context. So first of all, I'm going to ask it to shorten this quote. I don't want it to be so long. I've never asked it to do this before. I'm going to say and make it snappier. Does it understand snappier, I wonder? Again, and I'm going to say, okay, capture this sense without using any of the language that I've used in this conversation. Again, it's okay, but it's kind of a little bit boring, isn't it? And actually a quote itself is not that kind of meaningful without an author. So what I found myself doing is inventing an author. And it's no good particularly just coming up with a name. I've started that the author needs to have a little bit of history. And this is where things have started getting interesting for me, because I've ended up in these dialogues with ChatGPT where we invent an author and they sort of become alive. The more I talk about them, the more I think about them, the more I get ChatGPT to respond to me. The kind of, in some way, this character becomes more alive. And it's partly because of the feedback I'm getting. It becomes like a character creation, becomes like, it's very much a collaboration. I mean, people have been talking about collaborating with ChatGPT, and there was news, wasn't there, in the last few days about what's the name of the programmers kind of platform? It's introduced Copilot. Let's just remind myself. I look really stupid when it's a GitHub. That's what I meant, GitHub. I'm not a programmer, so I quite often forget that. So yeah, Copilot AI is Copilot is a GitHub resource which lets programmers kind of work with the AI, with ChatGPT in this case. Anyway, let's come up with an author. And I've done a couple of women recently, so this is going to be a man. And let's say he was writing in the 1980s. Let's invent an author for our quote. A man born in writing in the 1980s. A man writing in the 1980s. I've already invented a botanist. So let's invent maybe like a cult leader. I don't know why that came to mind, but it's something I've been thinking about recently. Just been reading about. Let's say I'm going to just rephrase this. Cult leader, writing in the 1980s for his disciples, from his mountaintop home in Scotland. This can be a Scottish cult leader. And I wonder if anyone can think of any Scottish cult leaders from popular culture. It's not really popular culture, but Ian M. Banks wrote a book. Not Ian M. Banks, Ian Banks wrote a book about a cult leader in Scotland. Come back to me if you know the book. Okay, so man, a cult leader, writing them for his disciples from his mountaintop home in Scotland. Please invent an appropriate name. I've actually been giving them names myself mostly, but let's see what it does. Please invent an appropriate name. A suitably gnomic title for his book. And let me think. Suitably gnomic title for his book, and a little bit about, and include a little bit about his life. I mean, that's about as general as it could be. Oops. It's funny, so I'm going to copy that in case I need to rewrite it. Sometimes this does happen. Just regenerate and see what it says. I haven't been doing a lot of regenerating of responses because, I don't know, I feel like there's a risk of overflow of information. I think that, sometimes I've got into a situation with it where it's almost giving me too much. My objective often, I wonder what's going on here. I'm going to refresh the page. Oh, did I miss it? I think I might have missed it, didn't I? Let's go back to my dreaming trees conversation. No, so I'm just going to put that back in. Introducing the enigmatic and reclusive Scottish cult leader Mordecai Blackwood. That's a good name, isn't it? Author of... Oh, it didn't like that. The internet has been problematic here today. I'm on Virgin Media and it's been causing all sorts of problems. Introducing the enigmatic and reclusive Mordecai Blackwood, author of Branches of the Infinite, a guide to embracing life's possibilities. Well, that sounds like a cult leader, doesn't it? Mordecai Blackwood was born in the remote Scottish Highlands in 1945 and spent much of his youth exploring the rugged landscape around his family's ancestral home. After studying philosophy, so we've got a stop there, but I'm going to bet you that if I regenerate the response now, it's going to be completely different. And this is the problem. It's almost too much information. I wish I could remember this. See, Mordecai Blackwood is good, but Galen Wolfe, that's really good. I think I prefer Galen Wolfe anyway. The Fractal Path, Meditation on Life's Endless Journey. That is the book. Galen Wolfe was a Scottish cult leader and spiritual guru who gained a following in the 1980s. Born into wealthy family, he rejected training and withdrew to a mountaintop retreat where he wrote his teachings for his disciples. His followers were drawn to his enigmatic personality, his deep insights into the nature of existence. So far so good. The Fractal Path was his magnum opus, a collection of meditation. This is great, isn't it? His writings were known for their poetic language and spiritual depth, and they inspired many to embrace a more contemplative and mindful way of living. While the teachings were controversial and criticised by some as being too esoteric and detached from reality, his followers remained loyal until his death in the early 2000s. Today, his writings continue to be studied by spiritual seekers and those. So there we've got encapsulated a character. And from this point onwards, we can extend that however we want. I mean, I love the way that it's invented someone out of nowhere. And I think part of the engagement with the AI, for me, has been this process of, just like a certain curiosity about what it's going to produce. And something like this, where it's not much more than a thumbnail of a personality, a kind of a short a sketch of a personality, but it's more real. I mean, it came out of nowhere, over in the course of 5 minutes. And I think that's something I found really interesting about this process and this kind of collaborative process. This is a bit longer than I'd planned, so I'm just going to stop here with this one. I think that's going to be enough for me to use right now. But yeah, 20 minutes for a video. It's on the long side, but it's doable, and I mean, unless I go in to every video with a very clear plan of what I'm going to say and what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to end up having them running for 20 minutes. I think it's unavoidable, but I will aim for 10 and try not to go longer than 20. So there's one rule for this YouTube channel. Yeah, let's see what happens next.